Hey there, Hill. How are you?
Great. How are you?
Good, thanks. That's a nice
Excellent.
background you got there.
Thank you. Represent forestry in some form or another here. Is Nick going to be joining us soon? Great. Are you going to be running the presentation, Jason, or will Nick?
I think Nick will be.
Okay, great. We are recording, so just know that now into the future. Welcome, Dion. Amy is out for the day, but I will be facilitating the meeting. So if you have any questions, just place them in chat.
Thank you.
Nice to see you here. Welcome, Nick.
Hi there.
I'll go ahead and begin with intros and do some just general meeting practices, and then I'll defer to you to get your presentation ready. And then you guys are welcome to share. Do you have access to the share feature in Teams right now?
It looks like yes.
Great. Welcome, Tiffany.
Hello. And
Chat,
thank you for the
chat
welcome.
coordinator.
Yeah.
Chat coordinator extraordinaire. We'll be starting here in approximately 3 minutes.
Great. I'm looking forward to this, Nick and Jason. Super excited.
And I have heard through the grapevine, there's a lot of people on summer vacation or deployed on fires. So I'm glad that we're recording this to make it available for community practitioners when they get a chance to review this information. So very exciting stuff.
I also invited the State of Oregon Research Academy Executive Committee. I don't know if they'll make it because it's kind of a late invitation, but I figured they'd be interested.
We're going to give a few, just looks like 1 more minute, let more people join, and then we'll get started. Okay, everyone, it's 3:01. And we'll keep admitting people as we're going to ahead and begin this session. Just thank everybody for being here today on behalf of the Oregon Project Management Advisory Board, OPMAB for short. Welcome to our Project Management User Group presentation for July 2026. My name is Hillary Olivos-Rude, and I will be facilitating our meeting today. Additionally, Tiffany Getz will be monitoring the chat for questions and sharing links with those in attendance. We are both members of the PMUG planning group and are excited to support today's presentation. We'd like to start with just a few housekeeping items. As you may have noticed, this meeting is being recorded, so please mute your phone or PC if not speaking to help just reduce any background noise. If you are not speaking, you are encouraged just to remain off camera. A link to the meeting resources will be shared shortly after today's session and posted on the DAS YouTube channel and OPMAB website. If you have any questions or comments, we do ask that you just raise your digital hand or place it in the chat, and the presenters will respond to them at the end of the presentation. In other news, announcing the Oregon Project Management Advisory Board, they have an opening for an ambassador position and 2 openings for board member positions. So for more information and to apply, we'll go ahead and insert those links into the chat here shortly, and you'll be able to check that out and explore further if you're interested. Also, we have a business analyst process and networking group. They meet on the even numbered months. So for more information, we do shorten it to calling it BANG. The BANG website will be also posted in this chat if you're interested. Also, you're welcome to share with your colleagues and are encouraged to spread the word on these PMUG Wednesday sessions. They can request to be added to this listserv that you all received the original announcement. We're going to go ahead and put one more link in that chat just so people can go ahead and click on that to be added to that distribution listserv. And lastly, some pretty exciting news. The OPMAB, the board, has launched a project management mentorship program. So we're throwing out also one more link so you can learn about more information on that and sign up to be a member or a mentor, if you're interested. I know I'll be checking that out. So for today's PMUG discussion, artificial intelligence, an overview of responsible usage and ideas for AI use on projects. It's a big topic. So we brought some pretty amazing presenters in for today. Those presenters are Nick Blosser and Jason Rude. First up, Nick Blosser. Nick began serving as the state of Oregon's first chief privacy officer and AI strategist in September 2025. He is charged with crafting the state's strategic vision for privacy and artificial intelligence and will play a pivotal role in shaping Oregon's AI landscape. Nick has worked in both private and public sectors, including as co-founder of a media technology company, as vice president at Portland General Electric, as chief of staff to former Oregon Governor Kate Brown, and in the White House Office of Cabinet Affairs for President Biden. He graduated from Stanford University with degrees in aeronautical engineering and English. On deck, Jason Rude. He is a seasoned IT professional with a career focused on statewide enterprise IT initiatives, strategic planning, program management, and data governance. As Oregon's enterprise AI advisor and lead analyst on the Governor's AI Council, Jason guides statewide AI policy, governance, and responsible adoption. Jason recently led the Azure AI Foundry Proof of Concept and is currently running the Copilot Studio AI enterprise rollout, advancing modern AI capabilities across the state. With extensive experience in team leadership, enterprise AI strategy, and cross-agency project execution, Jason is a key contributor at the intersection of technology and public service. Holding a master's degree in political science from Portland State University and certifications in ITIL, project management, leadership, and AI strategy. Jason excels at delivering innovative, efficient, and effective IT solutions for the state. So that's a pretty powerhouse team. I'm pretty excited that you all are here and are able to join us today for the presentation. So let's welcome our presenters, everybody, and I will pass it over to Nick to share his screen and start the presentation. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Hillary. Can you hear me okay? Yeah,
Yep.
Great.
Yes, we can.
Let me pull up the presentation here. I actually didn't know what PowerPoint Live was until last week. So now I'm presenting in PowerPoint Live. You all can advance, or I'm going to go through the slides, but you can advance the slides yourselves and go back and forth if you're interested in looking at those. They're a little bit text heavy. It's sort of like that terrible combination of a presentation that's really a handout. And we're excited to talk to you. I think we have a 2-part presentation. I'm going to do the first part, providing really an overview of the responsible AI usage policy that we now have at the state and get into how that might apply a bit and how you might apply that at your agency. And then Jason's got a section on AI for project managers, because he is a project manager using AI pretty extensively. And then I also just want to make sure you all are familiar with some of the features of the M365 Copilot license. And so if we have time and it makes sense, I'll show you a little brief demo of the notebook tool in Copilot. All right. And I also just seen some of the names here. It's good to see some familiar names. And Many of you may know more than I do about certain applications, so feel free to chime in or add to the chat, and we'll do our best to respond. Okay, so about a month ago now, we published the state's first comprehensive AI policy, which basically covers agency use of artificial intelligence. Primary goal, the way I think about this is we're really trying to create a trust framework for artificial intelligence at the state. And that means trust by, I think one of my first audiences that I care a lot about is state employees and making sure they understand and trust the tools and responsible use. Also the legislature and the governor and the public, of course. So there's a lot of components to that. And I'm going to sort of touch on each of those just so you have a really high level view of what that looks like. I think the other key part of the policy is really to try to begin to spell out clear paths for you and agencies to achieve your ambitions with AI and explore your ideas further and ultimately implement them. And also, what are the obligations that EIS, our agency, has, and what are we committing to try to support your journey, your AI journey. So there's 11 sections. I'm going to just touch briefly on each of these. Happy to go in deeper. All the material is going to be on the EIS privacy and artificial intelligence webpage, which maybe, Jason, if you want to throw that link in the chat, it'd be great. So these are the 11. I'm going to just run through them. One of the first sort of anchoring parts of the policy are just high-level principles. These were built from the task force on artificial intelligence that came out of a governor's executive order. They issued a final report last February, so over a year ago. And we built on those. There's a lot of good stuff in these principles, and they're all pretty foundational to how we think about this and how we think about what constitutes responsible AI. So human oversight and review, which we'll talk a little bit more about, equity and representation, privacy, risk management, safety. User experience, disclosure, and feedback is something I really feel is fundamental. And then workforce preparedness and understanding. So we're going to talk a bit about some of these, as you'll see in a second. One of the foundational parts of the policy is the establishment of an AI advisory committee comprised of state agency leaders. And I think one of the things that I recognize, and we all recognize pretty early, is that whatever AI policy we put out is going to need to evolve and be nimble because the technology is evolving, it's getting more powerful. Attitudes are evolving. So the idea behind this AI advisory committee is to provide a real high-level forum where feedback from agencies can be more dynamic and real time to continue to evolve, add on to, and improve the policy. As is, the policy, I believe, is a good foundation, but there's still a whole bunch of unanswered questions that this committee is going to need to take up. It'll be chaired by the state CIO. It's actually overweighted by agency business leaders. And so hoping that we will get that seated in the next month or so and have our first meeting probably after September Ledge Days. Part of the policy also, we actually issued technically a separate policy just on general recommended use. 45,000 state employees, 50,000 employees have access to Copilot chat. And we wanted to provide some foundational guidance to them on the use of Copilot, which could apply if we do. Right now, Copilot is the only authorized enterprise-wide tool. If we do authorize other tools, similar policy would apply. But it talks about appropriate data use, and fundamentally, it talks about human review and really humans being accountable for whatever. You may not be accountable for what the AI generates, but you are certainly accountable for what you choose to do then with the information the output from Copilot from any AI. And we provided, I think, a pretty good matrix that is meant to think about, okay, if I have more limited use, like let's say I have a 1,000-page federal report and I want to summarize it because I don't want to read the whole thing, I just need to skim it, and it's only for my own use, or maybe myself and a colleague, that's a great use of Copilot. I don't then want to take that summary and create legislative testimony out of it without much more significant review. And so we sort of try to have you think about it in terms of the audience and what actually the task is. It's also different if you've written something if a human's written something and you're asking AI to proofread it or maybe make it improve the flow, versus you're giving it a few words and asking it to generate a whole press release, for example. That is a little riskier. So the basic policy, though, the key thing is agencies should review this guide and decide if you think it's sufficient for your agency or if you want to add additional guidance for your employees based on the types of employees you have and the types of things they might be doing. So that's what the Copilot policy is about. The fourth element is the AI risk management framework. And this is a pretty foundational, important part of the policy that helps agencies think about, you have an idea of something you want to do, how risky do we, at least at EIS, think that might be? And the key part of this is a document called an AI use form, which I would love to have everyone just be familiar with, because it's sort of the grounding sort of intake form for any new AI idea that you would submit to EIS for review. I will just say briefly on this, there's 3 things that we would consider would trigger it to be categorized as higher use. And I'm just going to show you what we consider those right now. One is if the AI tool or system you want to use is going to have an audience that is not employees, it's the public or residents. So public-facing AI chatbot would qualify. If the AI system is going to be using level 3 or regulated data, or if the AI system is in one of these rights or safety impacting categories, and it's a very specific list. But if you're planning to use AI to evaluate a person in an employment context, or evaluate a person in a learning, or evaluate a person's eligibility for a service or good, we would consider that higher risk, and you should too. And so, and actually I've highlighted in red here some things that I've already heard that agencies are thinking about, or we've already seen AI use forms that describe them. So it doesn't mean we do not have a blanket prohibition on these at all. It just means that we want to talk to you and we want to make sure you've really thought about what you're doing here and have thought about, in particular, how you're going to test and monitor these systems if they are in one of these rights or safety impacting categories. Okay. Part of the risk framework also, we provide clear standards for disclosure that you're interacting with an AI system, clear standards for receiving user feedback, and also standards for human review. And happy to talk more about these. There's more information in the actual policy on them, but to me, these are, again, foundational to how you would have a good AI system. Okay. Last couple here, the policy directs agencies to create an AI adoption plan for their agency. There's not a timeline on this, but we do, after discussing with a number of agency leaders, we decided to make this a requirement of the policy. And we provided a pretty, I think, detailed template that you could follow to create this. There's no, like I said, no timeline on it, but at least right now. And the idea is that it's meant to be something that you can synthesize the documents that you already have around IT strategic plans and data governance that you already should have. If an employee has an idea for an AI use, how are you handling that? How are you intaking AI ideas at the agency, evaluating them, and then prioritizing them or proposing them? So this might be an area where we could spend more time, but we are planning to build out more of our website to provide greater detail on this. We're in the process of building out the EIS AI adoption plan right now and plan to share that with others as well. Okay, the last few, the policy calls for agencies to provide a complete inventory of the AI tools that they're using. We already collect on an annual basis the list of software applications that each agency uses. We're upgrading the system to be able to capture those and also capture the AI components of those tools. So hopefully, when this fully launches later this year, this application portfolio management system will be easy to use, helpful, and also my goal would be if one agency has an idea about a tool they want to use, it'll be much easier for us to see if other agencies are using it. You'd be able to call your colleagues in other agencies and ask them about their experience with it. And we'd be able to find kind of good referrals and efficiencies that way. Items 7 through 11, I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time on. They're kind of self-evident. Talk about security has to evolve with new risks from AI. We're going to be monitoring unauthorized usage and potentially taking action to block the unauthorized usage by employees. We do want to provide as much enterprise training on AI literacy and risk awareness as we can. We have a few classes right now. I'd love to do more, budget permitting. There's, as I mentioned already, a requirement around public disclosure and transparency. And I think the last one is a bunch of agencies, particularly the health and human services agencies, but also others, OHA and DHS, have their own custom development teams and are sort of leading the way on building their own tools. And we want to make sure that we want to support that and also provide requirements for how that can safely be done in a sandbox environment to start. So that is my high-level overview of the policy. Happy to take questions, but I might let Jason take over now. And Jason, I'm happy to advance these for you or can let you represent if you prefer.
Yeah, let me see if I can get the present mode going here on my PC. Okay, hopefully you folks can see it. I'll advance it up to.
I can't see anything at this point.
Okay. Oh, it's still thinking here. Let's see if.
Okay, now it's there. We got it.
Yes, I see it.
It's slowly populating. Are you seeing the AI in action?
Yeah, we see it. Arun, I see. Do you have a question while we're doing this? No.
Yeah. Thank you for that wonderful presentation and setting this up for us. I just have a question. I'm looking at AI stuff in general for the past few weeks. Microsoft, I'm just pasting a screenshot. When it comes to Microsoft, and Microsoft follows some responsible AI principles. Those are principles followed by all the Microsoft engineering team. So I know you shared some at the beginning of this presentation, and the second or third slide, those were akin to what I pasted. So my question is, these fundamentals or principles of AI, are they kind of universally followed or accepted standards, or is that mandated by all firms following AI, or can we have some variations of these?
Yeah, I have not studied the Microsoft quote unquote responsible AI claims, I'll just say, or statements. Our principles are our own. there's probably some overlap. I'm sure there is. So I think that there are some generally accepted AI risk management frameworks. Our system is built on the NIST AI risk management framework, which, I don't know that it states principles in the same way, but a bunch of the, a lot of the foundation of it is meant to reflect values and principles like security, privacy, inclusiveness, all of that. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, but we have not, I don't actually, I don't know. I appreciate that Microsoft has that out there. That's not something that is directly like we have embraced or put into our own policy, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. Because the only reason I ask is we are using and we are encouraging an enterprise-wide adoption of Copilot, which is Microsoft. So yes. I thought maybe we embraced some of their AI generic principles as well. So that's why I was kind of curious. So that's all. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I know this is being recorded, but I'll say, like, I don't necessarily trust any of these companies right now. And
that's fine.
So like, I appreciate what Microsoft's doing. I think they are our enterprise solution right now, but also we all just have to be cautious about, there's no third-party auditing or vetting of these claims by any of the labs right now. That's part of, some other states have just passed legislation on that, actually, Illinois and California. We do not. And so I think that's an emerging piece where we would all have, I think, greater trust if there was some kind of third-party auditing of these systems, but there really isn't today.
Okay.
All right. We don't want to go too far off on a tangent. I'll let
that's all.
Jason,
you answered the question. Thank you.
Yeah, sure thing. Go ahead.
Yeah, great question. And Nick, thanks for taking that tough part of the slide deck here with the policy work. I'm going to share with you folks some common themes in project management as they relate to AI, and also some experiences I've had running some POCs with AI in them. So one of the things I run across a lot is kind of the need for an AI mindset, right? So we can't approach these IT projects in the same kind of waterfall or even traditional, you say that, agile approaches, because the technology is moving so fast. So if your technology is moving faster than even an agile team keep up with, then no one's an expert and we're all learning, and that just has to be built into your approach. And I kind of learned that the hard way when I was working with Microsoft engineers in Azure, where the young engineers were learning as fast as they could, but we were all behind the curve. And so that just has to be part of the conversation when you're learning, and these systems are changing really daily. So the second point kind of leads from that is give yourself some grace. I would go in and use the tools. Don't be scared of them. There's no point in kind of reading some of the documentation on these tools, because they change so fast that some of the underlying documentation is just not able to keep up. So go in there and work with it a little bit, learn it firsthand, and try to stay on the curve of its change. It'll help you out a lot. And once you're there, it's easy to stay there, relatively speaking. Obviously, AI generates content, so it's not like a formulaic calculator that's going to give you the clean outputs that you might expect from your PC or other applications. It generates, so you just got to make sure you double check it. And it's going to try to tell you what you want to hear, and it's always going to tell you something, whether or not it's right or not. So double check it. Also, what I found helps folks use these tools is kind of find your lane and leverage AI's compute power. There's no way any of us can match the level of compute that these AI tools are utilizing right now, just in sheer breadth of content it can consume, and the depth and the ability to reproduce and summarize things is just amazing. So I always tell people, you really leverage the compute that's available to us now, because none of us are ever going to be able to replicate that, and it's just a really powerful tool to be using. Another kind of key component of this, and I was kind of tied in deeply when we were launching our first POC into trying to figure out how to avoid some of these, which is why our projects involving AI failing so much. And a lot of these were in the private sector. In the government side of things, we were behind the curve enough to actually learn a lot from the private sector that invested a ton of money into early AI projects, a lot of which really kind of struggled. And some of these reasons are kind of obvious and some aren't. So one of the things is trying to create a project that is maybe all encompassing, like replacing an entire app that your agency is depending upon for its major business or mission. Trying to replace that all with an AI project is really, really tough. And I would always recommend start small. When you start small, you can fail small, you learn, pivot, and grow. The really neat thing about these tools, and something we haven't seen in even SaaS solutions, is the ability to scale. So when you start small, it's actually pretty easy to scale up to the size you want and grow in iterations. So when you're dealing with your leadership, when you're dealing with teams who want to scope a project and it involves AI, I encourage you to think about, hey, let's do little pilot steps or do a pilot run, a POC run, or do it in iterations so you can build as you go. It'll make for a more successful project. Also, another one is kind of start with the real business problems tied to measurable outcomes. This is kind of bread and butter to project management, but AI has got such a fever pitch, such an excitement behind it that it can be easy to overlook that, hey, you really need to have this tied to some good outcomes you want to achieve, and then work from there. Another one that I see a lot of problems around, and this is across the board with regular IT projects, as well as AI, is validating your data readiness. In AI especially, your data is your bread and butter. It is the foundation for how your application is going to be running, the quality of prompts, the speed and accuracy of the prompts, and a whole number of other factors that dictate how well your AI is going to be working. And if your data isn't of high quality, if it isn't well governed, if it isn't structured the way that the AI is expecting it, it's probably going to affect how well it's going to be working, and you're probably not going to be as happy as you want. So go ahead and make sure that you spend that time upfront, making sure that your data is of good quality and that you bring in the data folks into your team. It's probably relatively recent, last 10 years or so, where IT projects really brought in data engineers and data owners to really get involved in the planning process. I think they're critical to have at day one. So bring them to the table and make sure they're involved in the planning process. And then finally, I think this is an important one. Treat the launch of your AI, probably pilot, right, as really the starting point. And the beginning of what you're going to have is a governance model and a monitoring kind of effort. These tools are changing a lot. The platforms to monitor them are changing a lot. The ROI calculations are changing a lot. So really think about this as a step into a new kind of lifecycle management approach, because AI is just changing fast and it's evolving fast. And it's not going to be the beginning. You're not launching and letting it go. As a project manager, you will be, but that operations team, the support and maintenance for the entire lifecycle, it's just the beginning, and it's going to continue to change for them. And so they need to have that as a mindset as well. And I kind of threw in a little from the trenches, kind of reiterating the point that I've seen a couple of different projects struggle a lot, and not because the folks didn't put in enough effort, but their projects were just too ambitious. They hadn't learned the tool set yet, and they started with a really big idea, and they really struggled. And what it did, it kind of capped their enthusiasm, which I was happy to kind of help them get them back in the groove of things. But a too ambitious project can really hurt your project progress. So watch out for that. And again, like I said, the data readiness is really key. Okay, so 7 habits of successful AI projects, and I source these from a couple of different locations, including resources from Gartner and Infotech. So I'm not claiming to have all these off the tip of my tongue, but they're ones that I've definitely seen and deployed, or at least deployed the best I could. And so I'll go through them real quick for you. But having a good business understanding and defining measurable success criteria is really key. AI is a little bit different because nobody's actually lived through a whole life cycle of a deployed AI application yet. In the private sector, yeah, they have actually, but in the government space, not too many people have yet. They've spun them up. They're in operations and maintenance right now. We've got a couple agencies that have done really good jobs in that, but they actually haven't completed the entire life cycle because AI is changing so fast that having the business understanding there and the measurable success criteria is pretty critical, because a lot of things are going to change, including how these things are built, how much resources they consume, where things live. All that can change a little bit, which impacts lifecycle costs. As I said before, data understanding, starting with some good basics. Your inventory of your agency's data is really critical. And then also being able just to validate the quality. Is it well maintained? Has it been updated recently? Is it tied to a pipeline, or does it have dependencies out there that maybe somebody else is responsible for, like a third-party organization? Knowing that will let you know what you can actually do with your agent, because without the data, you won't have a functional AI agent to work with. And if you don't know your data, you really can't know where your best use cases to deploy it are. So definitely understand your agency's data. Go talk to your data stewards and see what your data inventory looks like. I already talked about the data preparation, but definitely standardization, proper labeling, including metadata, really help with all of these components that your AI is going to be living and breathing off of. So get in there and work with your data stewards to make sure your data is in good shape. Model deployment. So this is another big one that we see a lot because there are so many models being deployed. We have a number of frontier models, all with exceptionally well-designed models that can tackle different kinds of work, and you have them at your fingertips. So you could actually try out 2 or 3 maybe pretty easily within an afternoon. I know I'm running a pilot with Copilot Studio right now, and we can alternate between GPT-4, 4.1, and 5. So we're able to test and deploy and really see the difference in them. And what I would say, if you've got the ability to change and test models, go for it, because they all have a little bit different level of skills and focus, and you can find some really neat results depending on your use case without being an expert in building large language models. The next one, number 5, is evaluation. So nothing new for anyone who's ever done UAT testing or anything like that, but evaluating AI tools comes with some neat automated features in these tool sets. I'll use Copilot again, Copilot Studio as an example. The user interface actually has evaluation tools built in. Azure also has evaluation tools built in, so you can go in and actually run through a number of questions in an automated way. And it can save you a lot of time and really surface any obvious problems with either your grounding data or the model you've chosen or other things. So one cool thing that's relatively new in this space, and one that you can really leverage at a project level to save you time, is the automated evaluations. Use them, they work really good, and you can test things like safety, bias, and other baselines. User acceptance testing that I was just talking about. This one's really key. And I had some fun experiences with the UAT and working with SMEs, just kind of helping folks understand the application, understand its limits. Some folks are just getting acquainted with artificial intelligence and what it means, and they might not understand the scope of it. So kind of explaining that the agent you're working with, or the artificial intelligence they're working with, the application, is focused on a particular area and will respond in a particular way, can really help them set expectations about how they're testing and what the interaction should actually look like. It'll save you some time, because they might come in expecting the AI agent to be able to answer every question under the sun, for instance, and when it doesn't happen like that, they can be pretty disappointed. So setting expectations around your testing and prepping your testers is really pretty key, and makes for a good experience for them, and they're able to provide you some really good feedback, as opposed to having to get some redirection. And the final one, and this is the one we're all still learning, so again, give yourself some grace and plan a little bit more time in the back end, is the operationalization of all this. The tools around monitoring AI, validating their outputs, is all changing and getting better and better. All the major frontiers have responded mostly for customers' requests to give them better transparency and visibility into how these agents are working, the pipelines, and so they're actually getting better all the time, being able to explain the thought processes going on behind the scenes. So although we can accurately say that there's a black box at the LM level. I think a lot of these vendors have done a much better job of letting you see the pipeline of interactions and all the turns in any of the logic that it follows to help you understand how it works and help you explain to your user how it's working. So getting this in operations, it's kind of the beginning, I think, for monitoring, and ownership is going to be probably an evolving job for a little while. But know that the tool sets that those owners are getting better and better, which should give them hopefully some reassurance.
Jason, you got a question about evaluation. Maybe you want to, you can see it in the chat, but I think it might be worth mentioning the Copilot Studio sort of evaluation suite. I think that maybe that's what you're referring to.
Yeah, absolutely. So in Copilot Suite, in the UI that you would be using as a maker, you can actually, after you've provided all its knowledge bases, let's throw out policies as your knowledge sources, you can actually run automated evaluations. So have your questions, your prompts, and then your expected answers. You can actually feed it into Copilot Studio, run it, and what it'll do is it'll provide you with an answer, and it'll grade it for you. And then what I've done is actually hand that over to my SMEs on that specific policy and said, hey, you were expecting this answer based on this question. This is what it provided, and how would you grade it? And I've been pleasantly surprised that we've had some really good turnout on that and good results. But the same is true in Azure as well. It's a little more complicated, and you have more knobs and leverage to pull to do that kind of evaluation at different levels. But two tools that make evaluation automation very easy. I hope that answered your question. Okay. Kind of from the trenches, and this is what I've fallen back on a few times, which AI projects are fundamentally IT projects. So when I start veering off a little bit, thinking, hey, this is AI and it's getting a little crazy, I've kind of drifted back into, no, this is an IT project. We've got some fundamental steps we need to be taking. Software development lifecycle is still there, and we still need to follow those, and they'll get us back on track. So if you're running an AI project and it feels like it's spinning off the rails a little bit, pull yourself back a little bit, because again, it's just an AI project that follows the same basic rubric for an IT project. It's got some complexities and is changing fast, but you've still got a lot of those guiding principles that still apply, including the lifecycle management. So know that it feels a little crazy, but you follow some of the principles and you're still going to be in pretty good shape.
Jason, I think we're supposed to wrap up in the next 5 minutes, so I just want to make sure we have time for questions if there are any. And so maybe go through the next couple slides pretty quickly, and we can see people have questions. Feel free to enter them in the chat, and we can respond to them.
Yeah, I think this is probably my last. Yeah. So operation, I kind of talked about.
Give you guys a little bit more time too. So.
Okay.
I'll make it fast, Nick. So I talked a little bit about the operation already, so I'll kind of be brief on this one. But monitoring, I talked a bit about that. Using version control, again, this is pretty common for anything that's SaaS and you're rolling out. And then change management's another big one. So make sure that's kind of baked in. Change management can happen pretty quick, especially as model changes and your data changes. Another thing that I've seen a bunch of, and probably to some of the point that Nick was talking about with the AI adoption plan, is that rolling out an AI project is going to take all levels of your organization. So your project teams, and this from IT projects, you're going to need leadership support, supervisors, and staff, but they all kind of play a critical role in making sure it works as an AI project specifically. And I've captured a few items here that you guys can check out, but I won't belabor the point here for the sake of time. And the last one here is just a couple of resources that I found pretty helpful. I wanted to share with you folks. And that's it for me.
Okay, thank you, Jason and Nick. You've shared highlights of the enterprise AI usage policy, the ways AI can be a useful tool for a project or program world. And as fast as AI is evolving, the challenges and opportunities are also increasing. Just really excited to hear where your team is now and hope you can return to the space as your guys' enterprise level work advances. We are going to open it now up for questions. So if you'd like, you can share by raising your hand. We'll ask you to go on on camera if you like, or you can put it in chat and we can have Tiffany announce the question. Thank you.
Bobby, your question about the resources, when you maybe we need to understand what resource you're talking about. Copilot clearly comes with you should have that Copilot chat. There's an enhanced license that would be an additional cost, but I think the question would be what sort of tools are you talking about? Or maybe you're referring to the resources at the end, Jason.
Yeah, thanks so much, Nick. Yeah, I was referring to the resources that were provided on the last slide. I did see that one of them was from PMI, and I just wasn't sure if that required a login or if those were open source. And then I don't want to monopolize the Q&A, but I do have another question if others don't.
Go for it.
Okay, excellent. I know it's a very specific use case, but on the slide that you presented, Nick, about restrictions and oversight for new applications of AI, it did list immigration. And I'm wondering if you could share a little bit more about that. Or maybe I could provide the use case that we're considering and you could see if it, okay. So under Executive Order 2604, it convened interagency council to evaluate immigration activity and make recommendations from more of like an enterprise level instead of individual agency to increase coordination. And there's an intake form that uses Microsoft Forms, and that then is exported, and AI is used to say, hey, evaluate this data and find any trends that you see, any emerging risks. It does that kind of deep dive analysis. Then there's human intervention to review and validate what those findings were. Would that be something that would require some of that additional analysis and oversight, or would that be more better described as an internal process that's used for operation only, not necessarily impacting external folks?
The specific language was the administration of justice, law enforcement, or immigration. And so it doesn't sound like what you're describing is actually doing that. We'd need to have a longer conversation, but just based on what you said, it doesn't seem like it would apply.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Tiffany, I see your question. When you say ensure permanent access as it relates to published info, maybe could you be more specific about what you're talking about there?
Sure. That's a good point, and that's kind of why I highlighted it, because not everything that we dive into is technically published, right? But if say you have an AI conversation, so like I think DOR has some sort of thing that like people can chime into a chat box or something, and it will respond to questions to some degree. But like so that would be part of the, well, I guess what I'm trying to say is how much of these public facing AI tools is technically, I guess, published. Like, is the model aspect published? Is the do we create reports on these things that are then published and referring back to the source of that kind of aspect?
Technically, there aren't any public-facing generative AI tools at the state that I know of that have been approved at this point. The one that you might be referring to is not generative AI. It's got a different logic system, I think. So it's not subject to our policy. That's a little bit of a sidebar, but sort of big picture, we do have a requirement in the policy that for all public-facing AI, the agency that does that has to develop a detailed transparency disclosure that they publish on their website that describes it's really just meant to describe in plain language, what is the system, what does it do, what data does it have access to, how is it tested, and then some specifics about what model it's using. And this is a first. I don't know that other states really require it in the same way, but we're going to do that. And so when those start coming out, you'll have those sort of more full disclosure and descriptive requirements.
That's great. And then I was just kind of, because I noticed your response regarding the resources. I haven't looked, but I just wanted to remind everybody that as a state employee, we have access to O'Reilly, and that those resources may be in O'Reilly. I'm not sure, but just calling that out.
Yeah, definitely. There are good resources in O'Reilly. I have not viewed them all, so I cannot vouch for all of them, but I know there's a lot of people who are fans of them. Well, we're here to help, Jason and I. I think, we're a small team, but we want to publish more resources on our website. We want to be helpful. I think every project manager should have access to an M365 Copilot license, which is the enhanced license that gives you access to some great tools. I don't know that we have time to do a quick demo now, but if you don't have that license, I encourage you to learn a little bit more about it and see if it's something that can help you do project management better. You can access O'Reilly through the state library. Maybe someone could, if it's easy, Tiffany, you could add something in there in response to Connie's question, but Hillary, I see your question here. Yeah, the preferred trainings right now are frankly on the Microsoft 365 Hub, which we should put that link in the chat here too, Jason, if you're able to do that. But if you're getting the enhanced license for Copilot, then that is a required training, that privacy, the one that's AI for public professionals. That is not tool specific, but it just gives you a little more grounding in how AI works, why it's so powerful, and also how it's a little bit of a black box, and why we trust but verify, and why there's all these policies about it, because it is kind of a new technology that you cannot document exactly how it makes a recommendation or a decision. So thank you for putting those in the chat. Yeah.
You're welcome. And if anyone else has any questions, please go ahead and put those in there. We'll do our best to try to get answers to you.
Jason, do you want to comment on Monica's last question there?
Yeah, so I'm glad you like that idea, Monica. We are working on it, and how we've thought about this, and how I would recommend folks think about this is think internally small and then build out. So in concentric circles, think about your target audience. So we are working on a policy chatbot. First off, training it inside, make sure it's working good, with the goal potentially in the near future, having it external facing for agencies to help understand our policies and requirements better.
And maybe I'll just add and close by saying, actually the time-consuming part of this is creating the initial evaluation of, okay, here's the 30 questions on cybersecurity. or cloud use, and getting our subject matter experts to answer those. And then we have a validation test that we can run against the chatbot. Jason's the expert on this, but sort of the actual creation of the chatbot is relatively simple. The testing and validation, and then looking at what the actual answers are, and making sure then having the cybersecurity people review the answers and make sure they're comfortable with those, that's the time-consuming part. Anything you want to add to that, Jason?
No, I think you hit it spot on. And I was looking at Rebecca's question. And Rebecca, it's a great question. We haven't seen enough of these projects go through a full deployment yet, but we've got a couple agencies who have, and I do mean literally a couple, but we're working with 4 other agencies right now. So I'm happy to put something together on that after I've talked with them about their efforts to deploy this across their organizations. I know they're learning about it right now because they're asking me questions about dealing with their different team members. So when they're done, I'm happy to gather that information and share it.
Yeah, and I'll just add that it's one of the reasons we decided to ask agencies to create an AI adoption plan that really includes, I liked your slide, Jason's slide, about different levels, frontline workers, supervisors. Everyone needs to have some involvement in this, because if you're going to be building a tool, and I think DHS OHA is probably the best example of this, where they have a tool that supports eligibility employees. They really built it and then had 10 eligibility employees test it, and then had 30, and then had 50, and then had 100 test it before they rolled it out to the full 1,500 employees. And really getting frontline employees to be using this, to use it, test it, comment on it, is a critical part of it. I'll just tell you all that we are talking with Microsoft about how we could do agency-specific trainings on Copilot and the basics of chat and Copilot, because I think an agency-specific approach could be helpful. So look for that. We do have some recorded versions of those trainings, including a promptathon that we hosted that are on the Hub website. But I think we'd like to do more by agency. So Hillary, you might want to cut us off. We're at time.
No, this is phenomenal information. I don't want to cut you guys off, but I understand that we need to wrap up the hour. So I do have to do an outro with y'all. But if you come up with more questions, yes, it will be made available. We will have it posted to the PMUG website, and it should be recorded. So you get to see some of our lovely faces again. But if you do have any additional questions, feel free to share them to the PMUG planning group, and we'll make sure to get those to Nick and Jason. All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. Again, just want to do a shout out to the PMUG planning team. Thank you, Amy and Amina Foster, they're not here, but they're here with us in spirit. Tiffany Getz and myself. We will post, if we haven't already, a short survey in the chat that will help us improve future PMUG experiences. And you can also nominate yourself or a colleague as a future speaker. So you can look for a follow-up email with links to resources here in the next week or so. Please share with your team members and those who may not be on PMUG listserv to select the link in the chat. If you're interested in becoming a member of that Oregon Project Management Advisory Board, feel free to check them out. We're excited to have those openings, opportunity to grow and advance that board. Lastly, if you're interested in learning more about business analyst processes or signing up to be a mentor, please also find those links in the chat. I do hope everybody has an enjoyable rest of the week. PMUG will convene again in September, and hope to see you all then. Thank you very much. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, Hillary. You did a great job. So did Nick and Jason. Take care. Until next time.